Hey there, ladies and gentlemen, Jens Davidson here. So this is a new video content for me, blacksmithing. So I've been blacksmithing as a hobby since about 2014 in the fall, and on and off since then. I'm not very good, but I figured I'd bring you along just to see some of the things that I do. So today's project, I guess as an introduction, show you the stuff that I've got. My anvil, my post leg vise, my forge, hammers, etc. And then walk you through my first project, which will be taking these 2-foot lengths of rebar, half-inch diameter rebar, and forging them basically into 2-foot long nails for the purpose of securing these landscaping ties or timbers that formed a border around a raspberry patch at my parents' house. So we've already got the boards, and I did a project similar to this a couple of years ago, and it's worked out pretty well. You basically drill a few holes in the boards, you form this into a giant nail by putting a head on the end of it and tapering the other end into a spike, and drive it down sort of at an angle, and then the next nail that you secure in the board goes that way, and the next one goes that way, and they hold up pretty tight. So I have a lot of these that I need to make. I made 5 already at my parents' house using my coal forge, and I need a total of 22, so that means 17 more, so that's a lot. But basically the way we do this is by upsetting one of the ends. And upsetting is a process of heating up just a little bit. You don't need a long bit of the piece hot. It's actually detrimental if you do. But you just want a little bit, the bottom couple inches of it, very hot, and then you hammer straight down on it. And what that does is it consolidates the mass. You have a fixed amount of mass here, and you're basically consolidating that into a larger volume, so you have a swelled end at the end of it, and that fat end will then be transferred to what's called a header, kind of like header and footer, and the header will it's basically like running this thing down a hole that is the size of the dominant body of the rebar, and then it'll obviously stop when the fat swelled up upset end can't fit in the hole anymore. And then by holding the header, which is my fist, up against my leg vise and hammering on this, you will force this mass to flatten out into a very large nail head. So I forged the header from a railroad spike, and it's pretty ugly, pretty crude, but it does do a very nice job. So that's all I'm after. I'm not trying to sell or anything, so it doesn't matter if it's ugly, it just needs to perform a job. So, alright, without further ado, this is my anvil setup. It is not very good. Just going to tell how it is. It is a bit of railroad track, and not particularly heavy railroad track. This belonged to my mother's father, so my maternal grandfather, and it was my first anvil. And basically I drilled a few holes in the corners of it, and I created this by using 1/4-inch plate steel. You can see there's several layers of it, I think 4 layers total. I welded up this block to secure the thing to, and then welded up this tripod on there, and that helps to add some mass to it. As demonstrated here, on occasion I can do a decent weld, but as demonstrated here, I'm pretty awful for the most part at welding. Then I secured some strap steel, this angle iron strap steel here along the bottom, giving myself enough clearance to put my foot underneath there if need be. Put some 2x4s on top of it, and then covered it with, or I put a couple sandbags on there, 120 pounds worth of sandbags. So all told, the combined weight of the tripod, the base, and the anvil and everything is probably around 150, 160 pounds. So as anvils go, that's pretty bad. I mean, if it was pure anvil, that would be actually pretty decent, but it is what it is. Until I can afford better equipment, that's what I got. And it can work for small stuff. So that's the anvil. This is my leg vise. This is the newest addition to my blacksmithing bit, and pretty happy with it. So I bought this thing off of Facebook Marketplace, paid a couple $100 for it, which is kind of the going rate for a post leg vise that's in good condition, and this thing is in very good condition. I have not done any restoration work on it at all. It needs some, and that will be a later project, but for now I wanted to use it. So I built this stand for it, again using sandbags as sort of a ballast in order to add mass and to prevent movement of this as I'm hammering around on it. And pretty proud of how that turned out. Crap load of chiseling work going on here. Chiseled out a void so this leg vise fits very, very nicely in there. Solid as a rock. Very happy with how that turned out. This is the nail header, and yeah, the rebar fits in there until the upset end stops on this, and then you pound it out until you get a nice dome-shaped nail head. So, last but not least, forge. This is a dual burner propane forge that I built entirely from scrap. Or not scrap, but from scratch more accurately. I bought a bunch of angle iron from Menards and the pipe and everything. I found these on a YouTube video. If I can find that YouTube video, I will link it in the description, because they work pretty well. The only modification I really need to do to them is to use a big washer and somehow make a carburetor so I can adjust the air-fuel mixture and get more of a reducing flame than an oxidizing flame. But otherwise, they do the job. Hard pipe going all the way down here until I'm safely away from the heat, and then I've got just vinyl tubing running down along the wall behind the fan. Make sure everything stays plenty cool, and then goes to my propane bottle down there, which is a 30-pounder. And that is brand new and full, and so I want to kind of keep track of how long it takes me to burn through that. How many hours on this do I get from one of those? That's something that I need to learn. This whole stand, again, built from scratch using the original factory intake manifold from my 1967 Ford Galaxy convertible. I built the engine on this car a couple years ago, actually 3 years ago now, and that's the original 78-pound cast iron intake manifold, which does a phenomenal job of adding ballast to this to keep it from accidentally falling over. Alright, so I think without further ado, tongs I guess here. This is my best pair of tongs. I really need to forge a lot more, but these are bolt tongs. There is a very, very successful YouTuber. His name is Torbjörn Omen, I believe is how you pronounce his last name. He's a Swedish blacksmith, and a phenomenal one at that. And to make these tongs, I followed his video, and I really can't complain about how well they turned out. I forged those, I don't know, probably 4 years ago now. My hammer of choice is a 1500 gram or 1.5 kilo, roughly 3.5 pound Swedish pattern blacksmithing hammer. I've had this for a few years, and it's a great hammer. And I think that's about it for now, so let's go ahead and get this forge lit up. Turn the gas on all the way. Up our regulator a little bit. Get a trusty lighter. years ago.